There is a person in your life right now who smiles at you every single time they see you. They ask how you're doing. They say the right things. They seem supportive. And yet, something feels off. You can't explain it. Maybe you've tried. Maybe you've dismissed the feeling as paranoia or told yourself you're being too sensitive. But what if you weren't? What if that quiet, uncomfortable feeling in your gut was your deepest intelligence trying to warn you about something your conscious mind refuses to see? Friedrich Nietzsche once wrote, "The most common form of human stupidity is forgetting what one is trying to do." Most people are so focused on being liked, on being accepted, on keeping the peace, that they forget to notice who is truly in their corner, and who is simply waiting patiently with a smile on their face for the moment you fall. This is not paranoia. This is pattern recognition. And pattern recognition, Carl Jung believed, is one of the highest forms of psychological awareness a human being can develop. The disturbing truth is this: some of the people who celebrate you publicly are quietly hoping you collapse privately, not out of pure evil, but out of something far more human and far more dangerous. Envy, insecurity, the quiet terror of watching someone else become who they were too afraid to be. In this video, we're going to uncover the 7 signs that someone is smiling at your face while secretly waiting for you to fail. By the end, you will never look at certain behaviors the same way again. Pay close attention to this first sign, because it is the most overlooked of all. Most people assume that a fake supporter will go cold or disappear when something bad happens to you. But that's not how it works. A person who is quietly rooting against you will often become warmer when you're going through hardship. They check in more. They suddenly have time for you. They want every detail of what went wrong. And you, in your pain, mistake this for loyalty. Here's the psychological truth. What you're experiencing is a phenomenon called Schadenfreude, the pleasure derived from the misfortune of others. Psychologists have studied this extensively, and what they've found is deeply unsettling. When a person feels inferior to you, your suffering temporarily relieves the psychological pressure of that inferiority. It levels the playing field, at least in their mind. So they don't just tolerate your struggles, they feed on them. Think about someone in your life who always seems slightly more engaged, slightly more present, slightly more available when things are going wrong for you. The friend who calls 3 times a week when your relationship is falling apart, but somehow never had time when you were thriving. The colleague who is warm and generous when you're stuck on a project, but distant and distracted on the days you're winning. That pattern is not a coincidence. That is human nature revealing itself. The Stoics understood this. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." But he also lived surrounded by people who smiled at him while sharpening their knives. He knew that the clearest window into a person's true feelings is not how they treat your success, it's how they treat your struggle. Remember this. Real loyalty doesn't fluctuate based on your circumstances. The person who is truly in your corner is just as present in your victories as they are in your defeats. Anyone else is not an ally. They are an audience. You've experienced this before, even if you didn't have a name for it. Someone gives you a compliment. On the surface, it sounds positive, but you walk away feeling vaguely unsettled, slightly smaller, like something was subtly taken from you, even as something appeared to be given. This is called a backhanded compliment, and it is the linguistic fingerprint of a person who cannot fully celebrate you. Wow, you did really well. I honestly didn't think you had it in you. You look amazing. I wish I could pull that off, but I could never be that confident. You're so smart. It's funny because you never really seemed like the type. Notice the structure. First there is the compliment, designed to make you feel seen. Then comes the needle. the subtle diminishment that leaves a mark you can feel but can't quite explain. Carl Jung called the unconscious communication between people the shadow conversation, the dialogue happening beneath the words, in tone, in implication, in what is left strategically unsaid. These people are not unskilled communicators. They are skilled manipulators who understand that you cannot call out what you cannot prove. The deeper psychological motivation here is status preservation. When you rise, they feel a threat to their own sense of self. They cannot openly diminish you. That would expose them. So instead, they offer you praise with one hand, while quietly pulling at your confidence with the other. Watch for the pattern. Not one instance, but the pattern. Because anyone can misspeak once. But a person who consistently leaves you feeling slightly less than after every compliment is showing you something real about how they see you and what they need from you in order to feel okay about themselves. True admirers make you feel capable. False ones make you feel acceptable. Just barely. Here is a truth that will rearrange something in your mind. The people most threatened by your potential are not strangers. They are the people who have known you the longest, because they have built an internal story about who you are, and your growth threatens the plot. When you announce a new goal, they don't celebrate it. They rationalize against it. Are you sure that's realistic? That's a big leap, don't you think? I just don't want you to get hurt. The language is careful. It sounds like concern. But underneath it is a quiet, selfish terror. The terror that you might actually become something that makes their own stagnation impossible to ignore. Nietzsche was precise about this. He identified what he called ressentiment, a French word for the resentful attitude that certain people develop toward those who have what they cannot. It is not simple jealousy. It is a deeper, more corrosive psychological state, where a person begins to moralize against the very qualities they secretly wish they possessed. They call ambition arrogance. They call confidence vanity. They call your hunger for growth getting too big for your boots. And the most insidious part, because they frame it as care, you may find yourself actually listening. You may pull back. You may shrink. You may delay the very thing that could transform your life, because the person smiling at you handed you a reason to stop. This is the most dangerous sign on this list, not because it is the most dramatic, but because it is the most effective. They don't need to push you off the mountain. They just need to make you afraid to climb it. The Stoic response? Move in silence when possible. Protect your vision like a flame in the wind. Not everyone deserves a front row seat to the process of your becoming. Watch this closely. When something good happens to you, a promotion, a new relationship, a creative win, a moment of genuine success, observe the people around you, not what they say, how they are. The person waiting for you to fail will say the right words. Congratulations. That's amazing. You deserve it. But there is a flatness to it, a fraction of a second, too slow. Their eyes don't quite match their mouth. The energy in the room shifts in a way you feel in your chest before your brain can process it. Psychologists call this micro-expression, leakage, the involuntary surfacing of true emotion before the social mask can cover it. In less than a quarter of a second, a human face will reveal what the owner of that face is desperately trying to hide. You've seen it. You've felt it. The slight tightening around the eyes when you share good news. The almost imperceptible pause before the congratulations. The way the conversation shifts away from your success back to something neutral, or to them, almost immediately after the performance of celebration is complete. Pay attention to what happens after the initial congratulation. Does the person ask follow-up questions about your win with genuine curiosity? Or do they move on quickly, change the subject, and quietly redirect the energy. A person who is genuinely happy for you wants to stay in the glow of your success. A person who is secretly threatened by it wants to escape it as quickly as possible. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly." He was not being cynical. He was being prepared. There is a difference. You don't need to become bitter. You need to become observant. You find out through a mutual friend, or perhaps you simply sense it, the subtle shift in how certain people treat you, a coldness that wasn't there before, a wariness you never earned. Someone has been talking, and when you trace it back, quietly, carefully, you find the smile. The person who hugged you last week, the one who said we should catch up soon, the one who seemed so warm, so present, so supportive. This is one of the oldest expressions of human shadow behavior. Openly attacking someone is socially costly. It exposes you as hostile, as threatened, as petty. But spreading quiet doubt, that is almost risk-free. A well-placed question, a concerned observation shared between mutual friends. I just hope she knows what she's getting into. I worry about him sometimes. He's changed. Don't get me wrong, I want her to do well, but notice the language. It always begins with a disclaimer of support. I want them to do well. I'm just being honest. I'm only saying this because I care. These disclaimers are psychological camouflage. They allow the speaker to inflict damage while maintaining the identity of a good person. Jung called this the persona, the mask we present to the world. And some people have constructed their persona so thoroughly that even they no longer recognize the shadow operating beneath it. They genuinely believe they are being helpful. They genuinely believe they are being honest. But what they are doing, beneath every layer of rationalization, is trying to dim a light that makes them feel their own darkness more acutely. If you discover someone has been doing this, do not confront in anger. Silence and distance are more powerful. The moment you rage, they win the narrative. The moment you rise, quietly, without explanation, they lose it. This one is subtle, and it is designed to keep you small. Every time you move towards something new, they find a way to bring up an old wound, not cruelly, not overtly, but consistently, precisely, like a finger pressing on a bruise that never fully healed. Remember when you tried something like that before and it didn't work out? You've always been someone who starts things and doesn't finish, haven't you? I just remember how devastated you were last time. I'd hate to see you go through that again. There is a psychological concept called identity anchoring, the process by which people attempt to hold you in an older, lesser version of yourself, because that version of you was less threatening, more manageable, more comfortable for them to be around. Your growth is an implicit criticism of their stagnation, and so they anchor you. They chain you, gently, to the version of you they need you to remain. Schopenhauer believed that human beings are largely driven by will, by a blind, relentless striving towards something more. The people in your life who are not engaged in that striving often resent those who are. Because ambition, in the eyes of the stagnant, is not inspiring. It is accusatory. Your evolution is a mirror, and some people cannot bear what they see in it. The person who truly believes in you speaks about your future more than your failures. They reference your potential more than your setbacks. They remind you of what you're capable of, not what you once were not. Anyone who consistently pulls you backwards into older versions of yourself is not your champion. They are your anchor. And at some point, you will have to decide whether to carry them or to rise. This is the final sign. And in many ways, it is the most important. You already know. You've known for a while. There is a form of intelligence in the human body that operates far beneath conscious thought. Scientists call it somatic intelligence, the body's ability to process emotional and social information through physical sensation before the rational mind has caught up. The tight chest when they walk in, the slight exhaustion you feel after every interaction, the relief, subtle but undeniable, when plans with them fall through. Your body has been reading this person correctly long before your mind was willing to accept the evidence. We override this signal constantly. We tell ourselves we're being paranoid. We tell ourselves everyone has bad days. We tell ourselves loyalty means tolerating discomfort. We tell ourselves we are being unfair. But Nietzsche understood something that took the rest of the world much longer to accept. The secret for harvesting from existence, the greatest fruitfulness, and the greatest enjoyment is to live dangerously. And the most dangerous thing a person can do in a world full of social performance is trust themselves. Your instincts are not paranoia. They are data, gathered across thousands of interactions, processed by a part of your mind that does not know how to lie to itself. The person who smiles at you while waiting for your collapse has never been able to hide it completely. The signs have always been there, and somewhere inside you, you have always seen them. The question is, what will you do now that you cannot unsee them? Understanding why people behave this way does not mean excusing it, but it does mean something more powerful than resentment. It means clarity. At the root of every person who smiles at your face while quietly rooting against you is a single, devastating psychological truth. They do not believe they are enough. Psychologists call this social comparison theory, the idea that human beings instinctively measure their own worth against the people immediately around them, not against celebrities or historical figures, but against the people in their direct orbit. Their friends, their colleagues, their family members, the people they see every day. When you begin to succeed in any area of life, you trigger a comparison in the people closest to you. For those who have a secure sense of self, that comparison is inspiring. It activates possibility. It says, if they can, so can I. But for those who carry deep emotional wounds around self-worth, around inadequacy, around the fear of being left behind, that same comparison activates something darker. A quiet panic, a desperate need to reframe your success in a way that makes it less threatening. To find the flaw in your achievement, to wait for the collapse that will restore the balance they depend on to feel okay. This is not calculated malice in most cases. It is unconscious survival behavior. Carl Jung wrote extensively about the shadow, the part of the psyche that contains everything a person cannot accept about themselves, their envy, their pettiness, their fear. When someone's shadow is not integrated, it does not disappear. It projects outward. It finds targets. And the most convenient target is always the person who most clearly represents what the shadow refuses to acknowledge. You are not the villain in their story. You are the mirror. And the tragedy is, they may never realize it. They may carry this pattern their entire lives, convinced they are loyal friends, supportive colleagues, loving family members, all while the shadow orchestrates something far less kind. Understanding this does not make it hurt less, but it does make it mean less. Their behavior is not a verdict on you. It is a confession about them. Now that you can see it, what do? Stop performing for audiences who are waiting for curtain fall. You owe no one a preview of your process. Protect your goals, your plans, your dreams with the same energy you protect your physical safety. Not everyone who asks deserves an answer. Let your results do the speaking. Responding to quiet sabotage with argument is a losing game. You cannot win a narrative war with someone who will simply reframe your every word. The only language a doubter cannot argue with is undeniable, visible, lived success. Build in silence. Rise in public. Adjust access without explanation. You do not owe anyone a confrontation. You do not need to announce that you see what you see. Simply begin to calibrate how much of yourself, your time, your energy, your vulnerability, you extend to people who have shown you who they are. Reduce the access. No drama, no speech. Just a quiet recalibration of your inner circle. Protect your emotional energy like a finite resource, because it is. Every interaction with someone who secretly roots against you costs you something. Enthusiasm, confidence, creative momentum. The Stoics spoke of guarding the hegemonikon, the ruling faculty of the mind. Let nothing in that does not deserve to be there. Root yourself in something they cannot touch. Your mission, your values, your vision of who you are becoming. When you are anchored to something deeper than social approval, the quiet hostility of others loses its power. You are not rattled because you are not dependent. And the person who cannot be rattled cannot be stopped. We live in the age of the performance of support. Social media has created an entire language of public celebration. The comment, the share, the like, the story reshare that can be executed in under 3 seconds and means almost nothing at all. We have never had more visible, documented, time-stamped support in human history. And we have never felt more alone. The comparison culture created by platforms built on the architecture of envy has taken the ancient psychological dynamics we've discussed in this video and amplified them to a scale that would have been unimaginable to Nietzsche or Marcus Aurelius. The person who once silently envied their neighbor now watches curated highlight reels of hundreds of people. Every day, every hour, each one a new comparison, a new wound, a new quiet accumulation of resentment. The pressure to project wellness, success, and positivity publicly, while privately feeling inadequate, has created an entire generation of people performing support. They do not feel for people they are quietly hoping will stumble. This is not cynicism. It is pattern recognition at a civilizational scale. Emotional intelligence, real emotional intelligence, not the self-help slogan version, requires that you understand not just how people should behave, but how they actually behave and why. The information age has given us access to more ideas than any generation in history. What it has not given us is more honesty about human nature. That honesty has to come from within, from observation, from the quiet, uncomfortable courage to see what is actually in front of you, not what you wish were there. There is something you must understand before you go. This knowledge is not meant to make you bitter. It is not meant to make you paranoid. It is not meant to turn you into someone who trusts no one, closes off, and moves through the world behind protective glass. It is meant to make you free. The person who cannot see these patterns is perpetually confused, investing energy in the wrong people, sharing their vulnerabilities with those who will use them, dimming their own light to make others comfortable. They wonder why they feel unseen, why growth feels so hard, why the people closest to them seem to become strangers the moment real success arrives. You now see what they cannot. You understand that the smile is not always the message, that the loudest cheerleader is not always the most loyal, that the person who knew you before you became who you are is not always willing to celebrate who you have become. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." The sovereign life, the life of genuine power, is not built on the validation of others. It is built on the foundation of clear seeing. See clearly. Choose your inner circle like your life depends on it. because in more ways than one, it does. Rise quietly. Protect your energy ruthlessly. Build with patience. And remember that the people waiting for you to fall have already told you something profound. They believe, somewhere in the architecture of their fear, that you are capable of heights they have already given up on for themselves. Let that be fuel. The world has always belonged to those willing to see it as it is, and rise anyway.